So it's been about a day since I saw No Time to Die, and it's sunk in a bit. And I kind of wanted to do a second review because the first one mostly focused on No Time to Die as a movie. And generally, I like to talk about these things as both a movie or a video game or an anime and the kind of meta political aspects of them. In this case, I kind of couldn't just because of how long the movie was. But it's sunk in a bit, and we're going to talk about it now. I think it's important that you look at these things from both a kind of a state of the art or state of the industry perspective and a meta-political perspective. Because I feel people tend to do one or the other. They say this is bad. Like, a lot of people gave the new Star Wars film shit and said they were bad, but oh, we like diversity, we like the feminism. And then there were people who would say, oh, well, the films are okay, but it's the messaging. I find, generally speaking, the two are inseparable. I think you can say something is an okay movie, but has really degenerate or unlikable messages. And likewise, you can have something that is a bad movie, but has really good messaging. However, I think generally speaking, they tend to be very closely tied. I think that's one of the reasons why the new Star Wars films suck and why the BioWare games started to suck as it went along. But we can talk about that some other time. So getting to No Time to Die, very briefly, my view of it as a movie was it was like a mixed bag. It's not as bad as Quantum of Solace or Spectre. I think Casino Royale and Skyfall were better. I don't particularly like the Craig era. I don't like any of the Craig Bonds. I think Casino Royale is a good movie. I don't think it's a good Bond movie. And in this one, we got some more camp. We got like secret bases. We got over-the-top action scenes. We got one-liners. We got crazy sci-fi gadgets. It had a lot of Bond stuff, but it also had a lot of just... It was just too long. They could have cut like 30 minutes of it and you wouldn't have even noticed it. It would have flowed better. So that's my brief summary. I probably wouldn't recommend it. If you want to watch it maybe when you can obtain a copy without paying, then go ahead. But I think you can probably skip this one and just read spoilers. So that being said, let's kind of get into the broader context of this film. So destroying James Bond has been one of the great goals of the left for at least a decade. Probably since the 90s or even the 80s. Bond is very much an anachronism. He kind of continues to be a heroic representation of a lot of things that are very antithetical to the modern era. And that's no surprise. If you read Fleming's books, Fleming very much, at least the impression I get, is he loves the British Empire. He loves British nationalism. He believes kind of uncritically in the superiority of the Western way of life. That sort of thing. And he likes all the stuff that's been produced by European civilization, you know, tea, specific European types of alcohol, theater, all that sort of stuff. And particularly once you get into some of the later books, there is a very much reactionary lament for the end of the British Empire, for things becoming paused, for like colonial guilt and stuff like that. And because Bond is so financially successful, even if they've tried to strip some of that stuff away over the years, Bond is still an alpha male. He's still a Chad. He still has sex with a lot of women. He drinks. He smokes. He uses violence to solve problems. He's an unapologetic British patriot. Just a lot of stuff like that that is very anachronistic and is very problematic. He's kept very much into the modern day. Even if you go into the Brosnan films, he's picking up women left, right, and center. He's just shooting people. It's all this kind of stuff that the left really hates. They hate kind of any representation of masculinity. And that's not to say that Bond isn't in many ways an anti-hero. I certainly don't approve of a lot of his behavior, but it is male. I mean, you can say something is very masculine without saying it's masculine in a good way. But Bond is kind of the quintessential holdover from the British Empire, kind of a Charles Gordon-ish figure, although Charles Gordon was celibate, but you get what I mean. And they've wanted to destroy him. They wanted to humiliate him and replace him, because that's what they do. And I mean, if you look at what's been going on for a long time, but particularly in the past year, they're tearing down all the statues of things that are inherently masculine, inherently Western. They're trying to destroy every legacy of our culture, of our people, of that kind of thing. And Bond is kind of something that was hard to touch because it was so profitable and because it was so popular for so long. And so as far back as like Die Another Day, they've been saying, oh, we're going to replace Bond with a woman. Halle Berry is going to become the new James Bond. We're going to have Idris Elba be Bond. We're going to have some woman be Bond. It has to change. It's time for the Jedi to end. That sort of thing. And a lot of this is very much a power dynamics thing. It is a power move. It is taking something that you value or something that you hold sacred and destroying it in front of you. It's like when the bully takes your prized Pokemon card and rips it up in front of you and throws it in your face. It's not even so much about that specific objective. It's about humiliating you, putting you in your place, and making you feel weak, and establishing the kind of dominant, submissive power relationship. And so if you can destroy Bond, if you can make him black or a woman or whatever, that is putting the fans of him and the fans of people who have the kind of values that would be sympathetic to Bond in their places, telling them their era's over, they have no say in society anymore. I think what especially makes a lot of this a power move is it's kind of like, you know, in The Dark Knight, I'm sorry to quote Batman, but where the Joker just burns all his money, and that's a power move because he's showing the mob that money doesn't motivate him. He's beyond that. He's beyond their control and their ability to influence. And Bane also does that in The Dark Knight Rises. You think this gives you power over me, that you have money. And by destroying profitable franchises and running them into the ground to make political statements, I think that is a power move. I think that is them saying, we are so committed to destroying you, we are willing to sacrifice one of the most, probably the most profitable, or I guess the two most profitable franchises in movie history, Star Wars and Bond, in order to demoralize our political enemies. And that, I think, is kind of scary, because I think a lot of us, when we were heading into some of this, thought maybe greed will save us. Maybe the self-interest of some of these media companies will limit some of the damage, because are they really willing to bankrupt themselves? And they are. Because they'll probably get bailed out by the US government or whatever. But my point is, this whole thing is a humiliation fetish. It's a power move. It's stuff like that. It's not, that's all it's about. And something I find that's a part of this, if you notice, it's almost always blacks that they insert for diversity. It's almost never an Asian. It's not a Native American. It's not like a Middle Easterner or, I don't know, something else like that. It's always a black person, probably because they look the most different and they stick out the most. And it's just the most kind of flagrant, and oftentimes it makes the least sense. So if we look at some examples of this, now Captain America I sort of defend, as it kind of makes sense in the context of the movie, where his best friend is a black guy, and there's plenty of black people in the US Army, so that's not like out of place. But still, it's making Captain America black. Spider-Man's black now. If you look at any of the medieval movies now, like Arthur, Secret of the Sword, or Robin Hood, they just insert black people in them. Ariel's going to be black in the new Little Mermaid. Starfire is. There's that Anne Boleyn, where Anne Boleyn's black now. There's that Julius Caesar. It's because it sticks out the most. And it's just doing something so blatantly anti-historical and so blatantly in your face. It's just to rub your face in it. and it's to try to make you complain so they can shut you down. And so they replaced Bond, 007, with a black woman, the most hideous black woman they could find. They didn't want to bring in Halle Berry. They didn't want to bring in Rosario Dawson or someone who's fairly attractive. They had to find like this hideous woman to replace Bond. And they had to replace Moneypenny too, because Moneypenny's traditionally been either like a redhead or blonde. She had to be replaced by a black woman. Now, the actress who plays her isn't that bad. It's still a power move, but they were kind of testing the waters a bit on that one. And now Q is gay for some reason, I guess, because everyone has to be gay now. But it is a power move. And getting into spoilers now, killing off Bond was a power move. Because it's saying, they probably aren't going to end the franchise, but it's saying, look, we killed him. Fuck you. We did what no one else dared to do. Now that Bond's dead, we can make him a woman or black, or preferably a black woman or a Jewish woman or something like that. And you will have your hero, one of the last implicit stands of white identity, the last implicit stand of masculinity, just destroyed and replaced in such a flagrant fashion. And they also added in probably the most cringy scene in the movie, where the Russian scientist is like, I'm going to design a virus to destroy your race. And once again, I always find it funny how the left is schizophrenic on the issue of race. Because they're like, well, race doesn't exist, human biology doesn't exist, but we can build these nanomachines that only kill black people. So that's possible because they're genetically similar and genetically related, but it also doesn't exist. So it's this weird, once again, I think it's a power move. I think in a lot of cases they're well aware that it doesn't make sense, and they just put it there as a way of saying, yeah, what are you going to do about it? Nothing? That's right, you little bitch. But I feel like whatever they did in this Bond movie was kind of a call out to that. At the same time, I think they did play this more safe than they really needed to. They did try to cram a bunch of like Bondish stuff into it. They did try to, they did have the family aspect of it and some things like that. Bond's main love interest was like a white woman, which is really weird. I figured they would have shoved something else in. I guess one of the things I kind of find interesting about the Craig era is I feel like Bond is a lot less of a womanizer now than what he used to be. Which I actually am not against. Occasionally you'll get things that are actual horseshoe theory, where like social conservatives and feminists will like agree on something, which is how I think prohibition got passed. Because a lot of like Christians supported the temperance movement, and they obviously didn't like men beating their wives, and feminists were also against alcohol. So you kind of had this weird horseshoe theory thing, but I didn't mind that aspect of it, even if it did come from a bad place. I'm certainly no fan of male promiscuity. But yeah, we'll see what they're going to do. I probably won't watch another Bond movie in theaters. If they do replace Bond with some like woman or some black guy, I'm just not going to see it again. I might obtain it just so I can do a review of it, but the Bond era is over. It looks like they've succeeded in destroying the last implicit stand of Western identity, of Western colonialism. It's over. And that's all I have to say on the matter.